Hi, welcome to Funky Rainbow and welcome to our book bazaar with books on diversity and inclusion. It's been a thoughtful kind of week for all of us at Funky Rainbow because when we curate books and try to find the right books, on diverse books and inclusive books, it takes a lot of thinking, rethinking, and revisiting our own opinions about books and understanding others' perspectives on them. So it's really, really been a fairly challenging week and a very, very thoughtful one to try and find the books that represent diversity in the Indian children's and young adult context. I'm delighted that so many friends have joined us at our diversity and inclusion bazaar. I know some of you have joined us on Facebook. Some of you are on Instagram, and some of you on YouTube as well. For our friends who are on Instagram, when we do the guest segment, we're not able to stream the show on Instagram. So I request you to join us either on Facebook or on YouTube, because, these conversations that we have with our guests are, the most important part of the show where we discuss many aspects of books that we hope will set us all thinking about books for children and how we can how we can make them readers and how we can make them empathetic young human beings. So really, if you can join us on YouTube or Facebook, do consider joining us at 12:30, which is when the two wonderful guests of the show are going to join us. So, of course, the whole question of what is diversity, what is representation, what is inclusion, I just feel sometimes that these words are perhaps not quite sufficient to describe what we really want these books to do. And when we talk of a concept like diversity, it means representing people. I can see somebody saying that they're not able to see the live streaming. It is up on live on our Facebook channel. You are commenting on it at the moment, Shilpa. So I think you should be able to watch the live stream on, Funky Rainbow's Facebook page. Do check that, because we can. If you are watching on YouTube, is it live on YouTube? Yeah, we're just checking to see whether it has gone live on YouTube. Shilpa, we'll get back to you in just a minute. So what do diverse books mean? We live in a diverse world. There are so many different kinds of people that make up this world. People from different classes, people from different genders, people from different from different kinds of segments of society. And why we must have books that represent different people in books as well, right? I mean, our children, imagine every child in the country, and we have such a huge population in our country of 1.4 billion people, perhaps half of which are young adults and children. Imagine if every child in the country could see themselves in our children's and young adult books. That's really how diverse our collection of books should become. Are we there yet? Well, we do have a clutch of wonderful books that straddle diversity in and that, by that I mean various facets: gender, identity, sexuality, religion, caste, and just so many aspects that are straddled. And I'm delighted to say that the Indian children's publishing space has made a start, and we do have many creators writing diverse books these days. What we'll attempt to do in the course of this bazaar is to present a few to you. I could see my colleague Sham saying something to me to say that yes, Shilpa, the show is live on YouTube, and I do hope you're able to catch that streaming. I can see Divya saying, or Avyukt and Ameya saying, good morning, all. Much needed conversation today. I do remember, Divya, you writing in saying that you would like to start introducing diverse books dealing with complex themes to your children. And I have to say that it's when we have encouragement from parents like you and teachers, that we feel delighted to showcase the slightly the slightly more advanced books in our collection. But this is not to say that they are only available for young adults or middle readers. We have a lot of picture books in our collection today as well, but books that represent India in all her diversity. So and the characters in many of these books that we're going to focus on today, what we want to showcase is that the characters in diverse books, either they reflect others or they reflect ourselves, but what is most important is connecting with them in ways that help us understand who we are and what we are today. I mean, imagine a child picking up a book where he or she or they see themselves, or they see different other children, they see other protagonists, that people who are different from them. And what we want, that whether there is that sameness or that difference, the idea is that these readings and these books will help them and us understand who we are and what we are today. So with that, I'm going to, get started with a clutch of recommendations. And I really mean that choosing the books in this bazaar has been a giant exercise in curation, because we've wanted to be careful not to pick books that make token representations. And I know that today, in the course of our conversation with our guests, we will discuss that aspect of portraying people in books vis-a-vis, actually representing them. And what is that difference? I'm sure our guests today will give us a good idea of it. As I said, we've tried to straddle a gamut from marginalized people, refugees, tribal rights, caste, religion, identity. It's Pride Month, so LGBTQ plus. And because there's such a diversity of themes as well, we can only pick one or two in each of these sort of loosely sort of, let me say, broad categorizations. And these categorizations don't really mean anything. I mean, ultimately, each of the characters in the books that we're presenting, they are being represented in these children and young adult books. As always, the books are up on our website, www.funkyrainbow.com. Click on the tab that says Book Bazaar, and the first drop down will be diversity and inclusion. We have a wide range of books in the bazaar. I think we have almost 80, perhaps 80 plus books in the bazaar. We are going to be able to talk only about 15, 20 of them perhaps. Do check them out, do read them. I mean, do read the blurbs and descriptions. If you have queries about the books, if you have queries about whether your child is ready to read such a book, whether your child will be able to understand the realities presented in these books, do WhatsApp us at 99004 95665. We're always happy to help you find the right books for your reading requirements. I'm going to start off with this loose category that we call, that we have sort of said as marginalized people. And the first and most, lovely book that arrived not, too long ago on our shelves is this wonderful one by Samina Mishra called Jamlo Walks, written by, like I said, Samina Mishra, and beautifully illustrated by Tariq Aziz. It talks about the life of one young migrant worker girl, and we do know her. Many of you are probably aware of her, Jamlo Makdam, who started to walk when the lockdown was announced. She was working in some chili fields in Andhra Pradesh, and she decides to walk back to her home in Chhattisgarh along with millions of people who were given just 4 hours to pack their bags and go back home. We were all asked to stay safe and stay at home, and isn't that valid for everyone in this country? So what did they do? Mostly, people that were, that work in construction, people that work in homes, people that work on our roads and metro bridges. Where did they go? They all just started walking home. And this sensitively written book, very, very beautifully presented book, tells the story of this young migrant girl who decides to start walking back home on the seventh day of the lockdown. You can see these wonderful illustrations by Tariq Aziz, showing the road that lies ahead, the long road that lies ahead of Jamlo, the long road back to her home. What happens to Jamlo? Many of you do know the story of Jamlo, and I'm not going to, give it away here for those who don't know her story. Well, she walks, and she's carrying back home with her a bag of chilies, because she was working in a chili field. She was harvesting chilies in a chili field, and there she is thinking that her parents are going to be delighted that she has this bag of chilies to give to them when she gets back home. What Samina has done beautifully in this book is that she's juxtaposed Jamlo's life with the lives of some urban children, who are doing online classes. For instance, in this page, there is this little young girl whose mother has been consistently and constantly watching the news and looking at a video of several migrant workers walking back home. And as little Tara walks into the room, she just shuts down the computer and asks Tara if she'd like to eat some dosa, and that she would be ready to make it for her. Well, almost instantly on the next page, you see Jamlo stopping at a dosa stall, looking quite eagerly at that dosa, and the kindly person in that stall offering her some til laddus to help her on her journey back home. What a beautiful portrayal of the life of a young girl, so young, and yet so daring in attempting that journey to walk back home. The book is really poignant, and I think, with this context of the lockdown and migrant workers being so recent in our memories, it's a wonderful book that would absolutely open conversations with your children. And Samina, like I said, has written it most sensitively. So I think you would find it a wonderful conversation starter with your children. And what does it finally want us to recognize? And it's something that we all want for our children, is that, can we do anything to make this world more kind, more just, and more equitable? What a wonderful way to present that plea, that goes out to all of us, adults and children in the world. This one is published by Penguin, priced at 250 rupees. And all the books that we're presenting in the bazaar, the ones that we're going to talk about and the ones that are that are already up on our diversity and inclusion bazaar, can be bought at a discount. Please use the discount voucher that's up on top of our website when you're checking out. And if you feel that some of these books would help you start these conversations or bring different worldviews into your children's lives, into your own lives, please do consider picking up these books from us at Funky Rainbow. We have another lovely book which we revisited just in the course of last week. Like I said, and I've always said this at different bazaars, there are books and books and books at Funky Rainbow. We have 9,000 plus books, and 90% of them are Indian children's and young adult books. And when we do bazaars, especially thematic bazaars like this, we're able to revisit these. We're able to revisit these books with new eyes. And I did find this wonderful picture book called Jew's Story, written by the very, very gifted Malayalam writer Paul Zakaria, very well-known, award-winning writer Paul Zakaria, and illustrated beautifully by Asma Menon. Now, I love the way the lines, the opening lines of the book are: "For Jew, old was new, except in the case of class notebooks. Notebooks had to be new because how can you write anything in a used one? So Jew's mother somehow managed to get just enough for her classwork, but she had to write in very small letters so that the pages of the notebooks didn't get over too soon. However, the umbrella, the textbooks, the school bag, the lunch box, the instrument box, and the pens were always old." I mean, just within the starting, in the starting lines of the book, you realize that Jew's mother works as a domestic help in, the houses of different people. And for Jew, no new things means hand me downs from the homes of the people that her mother works in. But she's a child and she welcomes these hand me downs too, like new friends, and she loves looking at those well used textbooks, and sometimes flipping through those textbooks and finding hidden treasures within their pages. I mean, I just love the way Paul Zakaria has brought alive the joy of something new, even when it is not so new. And for a child like Jew, of course, is a short form of Manju. That's what her name is. In fact, it is, her name is Manju Rama. One second. PR Manju, Poomarattil Ramu Manju. That's what she is. And, the thing is, she looks at, finds treasures within these pages. There could be pressed flowers, there could be poems. Sometimes, and in one instance, she even finds a dead butterfly that has spread its glitter on the pages of the book. One day, though, Ju finds a sealed envelope inside a math book, and it has a stamp but no address. What is the story of that letter? What happens, to that letter? Does it, go to the person that it is meant for? It's a book that tells this wonderful story, and it's a very, very uplifting kind of story, really, but right through reminding us of the conditions in which people like Ju and her mother live. So you see, opening our eyes at once to the poverty that so many people in our country live in. But does that take away from their ability to enjoy, to find joy in the small things in life? Definitely not for Jew. Paul Zakaria, writing this really wonderful tale and illustrated by Asma Menon, illustrations too, adding so much depth to the story. This one we'd recommend for 6+ year olds, and it's priced at 135 rupees, published by Tulika. I do want to say we have very, very few copies of many of the books that we're recommending at the bazaar today, because, since the lockdown on the 27th of April at Bangalore, we quite literally haven't received that many books from publishers. I know things have opened up, and logistics and shipping have started to some extent, but it's going to take a bit of time for these chains to get for things to get set right. So we do have limited copies of some of these books, and more copies of others. So if they do interest you, consider picking them up from us on www.funkyrainbow.com. I can see Moon Moon here this morning. Good morning, Moon Moon. How wonderful to see you here all the way from Calcutta. I'm going to move to, and like I said, these broad classifications are just ours in order to sift and sort books primarily, not for any other purpose, but to be able to pick and choose the ones that we want to, present to you. But otherwise, irrespective of whether it's an LGBTQ plus book or whether it's about caste or refugees, they are all diverse Indian children's and young adult books. In our next category of, refugees, we have this masterpiece of a book by Anjali Roff called The Boy at the Back of the Class. We would recommend this for 9, 10 plus year olds, certainly. What a lovely story about a young boy called Ahmed who's had to come away to London as a refugee from Syria. Now he occupies a chair that is absolutely at the back of the class when he comes to joins school in London. That chair used to be empty for a really long time, but now Ahmed sits on it. He's just 9 years old and he's very quiet. He never talks. He smiles occasionally at friends. And, when all the children are running around to get their, sip of lemon sherbet or grab some toffees, Ahmed simply never joins. He doesn't, join that crowd to grab his share as well. The protagonist of the book, who's such a lovely boy, his friend in class, he realizes that there's nothing strange about Ahmed actually, because Ahmed has had to relocate from the place that he calls home, and he has had to run away literally from a war. And that segment where Anjali Roff talks about a real war means bombs, it means soldiers, it means guns, it means devastation. That's what young Ahmed has seen and left behind and come to London. And so the unnamed protagonist of this book, who's not Ahmed, who's Ahmed's friend, him with 3 other friends, Josie, Michael, and Tom, they decide that they are absolutely going to see what they can do to help Ahmed fit in and be happier in class and in school. Such a lovely, heartwarming book by Anjali Roff. We would highly recommend it for 9+ year olds. And she has, it's one of those books, chuckle inducing at 1 minute and tear inducing the very next, because you do understand these situations, these tough situations. So it's not like all the books that we're recommending are only serious and where children are not going to be able to find something that they identify with, or there are no jokes, or there are no funny things that they can laugh about. The thing is, though, that they present realities of different kinds of people, and that's the point of these diverse books. I can see Shantanu Datta Gupta from Scholastic joining us, saying, hey gang, hey to you too, Shantanu. Thank you so much for joining us at our Diversity and Inclusion Bazaar. Anjali Roff's book, published by Hachette India and priced at 299 rupees. Like I said, do check them out at the bazaar, and if the books interest you, use the discount voucher when you're checking out to pick them up. We move on, to our next category of books, which are like I said, please don't treat these categories as sacrosanct categories. They're just, ways for us to pick and choose the right ones to showcase to you. And also, so we represent in the course of the bazaar diverse realities in India. So we, like I said, we may pick books on sexuality, on identity, on gender, on caste, on tribal rights. And our next set of books is our next book is this beautiful book by the activist writer Rinchin. This one called The Trickster Bird, written by Rinchin and illustrated by Manjari Chakravarti, is set in the Pardhi tribals. It's set in the midst of the Pardhi tribals in Madhya Pradesh. Now, who are they? They are, traditionally bird trappers. That used to be a profession, that used to be their traditional profession. And but what has happened is takers anymore, and they have had to necessarily be dislocated from their homes and move to the cities, where what they end up doing in the cities is menial work. So these Pardhi tribals who've come to cities, and many of our cities see them, we have you find that they are primarily rag pickers. They're cleaning up your streets. And in this book, it's the story of a young girl called Renchu. Now, Renchu is not feeling well one morning, and she's perhaps 6, I think, in the book, or yeah, perhaps 6 or even younger in the book. And she says she's not able to go to work that day because she's not well. So she stays back with her dadi. And her dadi, what does her dadi do? Her dadi actually sorts all the waste that comes back, all the rags that are getting picked. Her dadi sorts them out into plastic waste and paper waste. And, what she does when she's sorting that waste is to tell Renchu a story. Now, the story is of a trickster bird. And, so deftly Rinchin, in the course of telling that story that the Dadi is telling Renchu, is able to portray the reality of these people who are, who sort of literally move in and out of two different worlds. It's such a it has all the affection of a grandma narrating a story to her granddaughter, and but yet portraying the reality of these rag pickers in the city, who were tribals, who've been who used to live in the forest and used to make a living out of the forest, who have now been forced out of it into juggies in our city, into little shanties in our cities. And while we know that they clean up our cities, we don't want them anywhere near us, really. I mean, it's a book meant for children as young as 6 years. And if you think that there's not an element of fantasy, there's not like a wonderful story being narrated in this book, you are mistaken. It's just that, these books can be used to, of course, tell the stories of, diverse, people, but they can also be used to start conversations with your children on the different realities around us. Manjari Chakravarti's warm illustrations, warm and, with these shades of brown and blue, and sometimes the browns portraying the dirty mud or the dirt of the city, the squalor of the city, really adding so much layer and nuance to this wonderful story by Rinchin. Like I said, published by Tulika, priced at 165 rupees. I can see Ritvika Roy saying The Unboy Boy by Richa Jha is beautiful. It is, of course, up in our diversity and inclusion bazaar, Ritvika. Thank you for joining us. And, if you did look through the books in our collection on our site, you'll see that we have 80 plus books straddling, a wide range of themes, on diversity. Sunila joins us here this morning. Hello, Team FR. I was waiting eagerly for this session. Such a needed subject. Thank you. Thank you so much for reinforcing our faith in the fact that books are the best conversation starters ever. Each one of you who comments, who posts, who says hello, who connects with us, after the show is over on our Instagram or email, you do give us a lot of faith in the fact that we can and perhaps hope for a just and a more equitable world, and the children who will inherit this world will perhaps make it a better place. In the same category of, tribal rights is this, marvelous young adult novel, published by Tulika, written by Devashish Makhija, called Unga. In fact, Unga is, the novel based on his critically acclaimed film made in 2013. And what is the story of Unga all about? We would recommend this one. It has fairly, it does have some scenes of violence, the violence that is heaped on tribals by police forces and by the powers that be, really. So we would recommend it actually for 15-plus-year-olds because of the instances of violence that are described in the book. But what is this a story about? It's about a young boy called Unga. And, Unga lives in a Nakshal, in the Nakshal belt in Chhattisgarh. Now, the thing is, and there is constantly clashes between the Adivasis and the government and the police, because that land that is theirs, that is their sacred land, they want it, to the government, the powers that be, want to give away that land to a mining corporation. We've heard this story so many times. I'm sorry, I said Chhattisgarh. That was a mistake. These are the Dongria Cones. Sorry, the Dongria Cones in Orissa. And Unga, the eponymous character of the book, is a young Dongria Coned boy. Now, the thing is, he wants to travel to the city, one time to see a play. He wants to see the Sita Haran play that is going to be happening in the city. And as he goes on this journey, watches that play in the city and comes back to his little village in the midst of the forest, he comes back, and I like the way you can see that Unga is portrayed purple in color, because he almost returns and feels, it's not just feels, he returns and he finds that he has to don a Rama-like avatar. Why does he have to don a Rama-like avatar? Because his family, his tribe, his place, they all need protection. And, there are gun-wielding terrors all around this Dongria Koned village. And, what does Unga do? Is it possible for him to save his family, save his tribe from this dreadful mining corporation? Brutal violence, really. And I'm not going to, can these stories have happy endings? I don't want to sound cynical, really, but this sort of intersection, or the clashes between between the police forces and the tribals at a particular point in time, the brutality of those wars, they just seem so meaningless, when you read about them in the book. And, actually, finally, telling you the story of how, peaceful people who actually live in communion with nature are forced to arms, by the wrongdoings of the powers that be. It's a wonderful book. And, it has been, I know the Neve Book Awards have announced their shortlist, just recently, I think 2 or 3 days ago. Congratulations to so many, wonderful friends whose books have made it to that shortlist. Delighted to say that Unga is on that shortlist for young adult readers as well. This one, published by Tulika, priced at 295 rupees. We would recommend it for 15-plus-year-olds. That there was another very well-known one on the Dongria Koned tribes, written by Siddharth Sharma, called Year of the Weeds. that's up on our bazaar as well. This one perhaps a notch higher, meant for readers of a slightly higher age group. I can see Sunila making so many comments saying, so wonderful what you said just now, absolutely true and hope infusing. And she compares saying, like the year of the weeds, mining rights which will overturn the tribes living there. And the reality is that they're never able to face up to the brutality that is heaped upon them. That was in the category of tribes, and I would like to move to another scourge that plagues India, continues to plague India even in the 21st century. And I mean, it's my fervent plea to all the parents and children and teachers, and teenagers watching this show that, as we move into a more modern world, we should try to do away with the scourge of caste that plagues us even today. Two very, very, popular books on this theme that I'd like to recommend. And I know perhaps many of you are already introduced to it, so I may just rush through these two books. But Soumya Rajendran's powerful, searing indictment of caste, The Boy Who Asked Why, written by Soumya Rajendran and illustrated by Satvik Gade, telling us the story of the man who was the prime mover and shaker behind the Indian Constitution, that document that tells us that we are all equal and we are all free. Now, the book has these pertinent whys, very, very pertinent whys that Ambedkar, as a young boy, is asking, his parents, his teachers, why do I have to sit separately in a corner of the classroom? Why can't I drink water from the tap like other children? Why do the teachers never touch my books? Well, these whys, they just keep they just keep going round and round and round young Ambedkar's head. And he decides that this monstrosity called untouchability, he's going to, do something one day to change it, to take it away from our world and from our lives. It's these remarkable ideas that he has, and they are all shaped out of his own experience of discrimination, right at school, at home, in the village that he lives in, that helps him form these remarkable ideas, the remarkable ideas that become the cornerstone and that have gone on to become the cornerstone of India's constitution, which he helped draft as our first law minister. And you can see Satvik Gade's illustrations here. They really, visualize the horror of discrimination. And what I really like about this positive picture book is that how that discrimination has, helped this young boy, go forward, fight against it, and do whatever he could to ensure nobody else goes through such discrimination ever again. Is that true? So many decades after our constitution has been drafted, we need to ask ourselves these questions. We need to ask our children these questions, because they have the minds, they have the imagination, they have the power to change the world and make it a much, much better place. That's why these books absolutely needed conversation starters with children and adults. I would say that teachers and students, or parents and children, please do consider reading many of these books together. You will have what is a valuable conversation that comes out of it. This one we would recommend for 6+ year olds and priced at 185 rupees, published by Tulika. The same one in the same the same scourge of caste, in a book for young adults called Savitri Bai Phule and I, written by Sangeeta Mule and published by Panthers Paw Publications, a publishing house that focuses exclusively on telling Dalit stories. Again, a powerful book, meant, I would say this time round, maybe 13, 14 plus year olds, perhaps, who can read this, about a young girl who gets into engineering college because of reservation. So you already know, what strata of society she comes from. And, it's a huge step forward for her. She's the only girl from her little town who is going to go to engineering college in a slightly bigger town. Is the future looking rosy for this young girl? Well, not really, because when she gets to engineering college, what happens is that whether it's her professors or her classmates, they are relentless in pointing out to her that she is a reservation student and not as bright or as capable or competent as they are. And some of those scenes, so heartrendingly portrayed in this book by Sangeeta Mule. What happens to the protagonist, young girl, at 17, or perhaps a little older, 18? She almost decides to take her life. And fortunately, at least in fiction, she stumbles unexpectedly upon the diary of Savitribai Phule, the feisty feminist pioneer who made education possible for so many women many, many decades ago. She stumbles on Savitribai Phule's diary, and boy, how much strength, courage, and resilience she derives from that diary. What happens? What happens to the young protagonist of this book, inspired by Savitribai Phule? Does she go ahead to complete her education and battle the scourge of caste, that she has to, that she's faced with, every day of her life? Wonderful read indeed. Absolutely, the right one for many of us who live in our bubbles of privilege, completely unaware of these realities in the world around us. And these ones, portraying to you that, people have struggles of different kinds, and what are they? What are those challenges? And does that make you more empathetic, more kind, more understanding, more tolerant? This one priced at 299 rupees, published by Panthers Paw Publication. Shall I say a big round of hellos to so many people who've joined us at the bazaar today? We are really thankful. We know often that people balk from these books. They are, well, I'm not sure we want to introduce our child to something like this. I'm not sure my teenager's quite ready to read something like this. And they could be parents, they could be teachers, schools saying, we don't want to rock the, boat really. The fact is, these are all beautifully written books, and they, are absolutely, sort of, that are going to help you have conversations that will make the education or whatever you're trying to imbibe in your child so much more meaningful, really. So we would urge you not to shy away from these difficult topics. Everything in the world, and this is not to say that these books are only morose and only books that portray like very harsh realities of India. They do portray harsh realities of India, but the protagonists there are people with a life, with friends, with fun, with positive things happening in their lives as well. And we would urge you to consider these books with a little more, with more enthusiasm, because our publishers who are bringing it out as well need to know that there are readers for such books. Of course, my colleagues are all pointing out to me that, what we need to do is to lighten the mood a bit and wish, one of our partners at Funky Rainbow, Grey Stroke, a very, very happy birthday. So there, happy birthday, Grey Stroke. Everyone at the office wishing him a really, really happy birthday. A discerning reader of books. To you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Grey-Stroke. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Grey-Stroke, a discerning reader of books, a very sensitive, with a very sensitive understanding of the realities of the world, a great, absolutely a wonderful sounding board for many of the books that we, have showcased in this bazaar and the ones that we curate and put into Funky Rainbow. Muttama too, being a disability rights activist, it has helped us to revisit these themes over and over again from our own experiences and our own perspectives to portray a diverse collection of books to you. I can see so many happy birthdays going up to you, Grey-Stroke. Where's the cake or kab hai party is the question, like, right? Amidst all the books, right? Well, he says he knows only Gita party, which means party in Tamil means grandmother. Sorry. So many people on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube wishing Grey-Stroke happy birthday. Well and truly a very, very happy birthday. Divya Purantar, Shantanu Datta Gupta, Sunila Kulkarni, Sheba Abidi. So many of you wishing Grey-Stroke a very happy birthday. Thank you so much. I'll just quickly say hello to a clutch of friends before we go back to more recommendations. We have several, and I'm fairly certain we're not going to be able to cover the gamut of them, but we'll do as many as we can before our wonderful guests for the day join us at 12:30. Divya Menon with Avyukt Nair, I'm assuming, Shilpa C, Deepali Taneja, Moon Mitra Das, Shruti Sri Raghunath, Sunila Kulkarni Gupte, Ramachari, Ragini Menon, Muttama's mum in Cochin, Shantanu Datta Gupta, Ritvika Roy, Mandira Shah, Shubh SK, Satish Sundaram, Parag Sen, Shivangi Sharma, Sheba Abidi, Ranju, just telling my tales, Shruti Sri Raghunath, Nisha Nair Gupta, Anjani Rajgopal, Vinita Stories, Smith's Bookery, Rohan Subramanian, Canographer, Ride Home, VN Pooja, Aarti Mutanna Singh, Chanda Storyteller, The Little Reader, Rimjim Priyadarshini, Anju, Bhavna Kittur, Shaila Raghuvanshi, The Bookshelf, Tickling Tailbone, Dakshita Bishnoi, Deepali, R.K. Desai, Ayushi, and Halfling Rogue. What a pleasure that you've all joined us at the bazaar. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and making this journey of discovering diverse books so much more meaningful for all of us at Team Funky Rainbow. I will go back to, recommending a clutch of more books, and these ones, the next category being about minority religions in the country, really, right? And we have two books. There are several others in the bazaar as well, where, we have books that portray, that have Muslim protagonists, that have Christian protagonists, that have Sikh protagonists. I've picked two for you, and these are all not just token representations of people from different religions. The books do portray a kind of, discrimination or marginalization that they face because of their religion. I have this wonderful book put together by Anveshi and Parag, and it is part of a series called Different Tales. Very, very few copies of these books remaining, with us today. I don't know if they're still in print. We've been asking the publishers over and over again to send us more copies, but haven't really been receiving them. But this one, called Spirits from History, it has two stories. And the first one is about, a young boy called Adil. In fact, that first story, which is called History Does Not Like Me, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, History Does Not Like Me. Adil is absolutely in school in his little village, and he's haunted every single time by his teacher's bewildering look. quotes unquotes bewildering look in the history class when she's teaching about the battle between the Rajput king Rana Sanga and Emperor Babur. And you know what that's pointing to. Adil is Muslim, and the teacher's always giving him these looks saying, well, you come from that line of people who betrayed us, or traitors to our cause. And I'm sure she's not saying it, but that look, that bewildering look that Adil senses. And then what happens? Like I said, these books, these are in fact the different tales. They are books from different regional languages. They're stories that talk about the life of children in communities that one rarely reads about. And these are all translations. These the different tales books have all been translated from different Indian languages. And this specific one that we are recommending to you today, if you think that he's just Adil is just sensing this sense of this kind of piercing gaze that his teacher has upon him. What happens as he goes forward is that one fine day he suddenly meets Emperor Akbar in a dream. I mean, not Emperor Akbar, I'm sorry, Emperor Babur in a dream. And you know what Emperor Babur does? He just tells him a very different version of the same battle that his teacher is talking about, the same battle between King Rana Sanga and Emperor Babur himself. And you know what? In Emperor Babur's versions, the Muslims are no demons. What a lovely way to present these stories and these realities that a lot of us face, right? That people from marginalized communities, people from different identities, people from different religious minorities, these are things, little things that they have to encounter in their everyday lives, isn't it? And this story, telling you, written so nicely for a child. We would recommend it for 10 plus year olds because it is fairly text heavy, that you can see, introducing this facet that perhaps your own child, a school going child, will, may have experienced this themselves in school somewhere. I mean, but such a wonderful way to introduce this concept, and of the fact that what is the correct version of the history that's being presented to you. This one published by I don't know what the price is, girls. No price on the books. Okay, this one priced by published by Anveshi and Parag, priced at 65 rupees. Just one single copy left in our collection. On the same lines, a book for young adults that we have recommended several times in the course of this bazaar is Ranjit Lal's The Battle for Number 19. We'd recommend this for 13 plus year olds. And Ranjit Lal really, with the ability to take complex issues and present them in the form of interesting stories for middle readers and young adult readers. This one we'd certainly recommend for 13 plus year olds. What is the story about? 8 schoolgirls who are from the hills have come down to Delhi to go to see the Taj Mahal and visit the capital city and all the splendid, spectacular sights that that city has to offer. But that just turns out to be the day that Indira Gandhi is assassinated by her Sikh bodyguards. What happens? There's mayhem, there's violence, there's rioting that breaks out in the city, and these set of 8 schoolgirls who come from diverse religious backgrounds, there's a Hindu, there's a Muslim, there's a Sikh, they have to take refuge. They have to take refuge from the violence that has erupted around them. And they do, they go into a house, where they are taking refuge. But suddenly friendship absolutely gets tested on friendship gets divided on religious lines. I mean, such a masterful way. I can see Asha Nehemiah saying one of the best books, one of Ranjit Lal's best books. Indeed, it is, Asha. And that thin dividing line, between what is right and what is wrong. Ranjit portraying it so beautifully. I think it's one of, it's a wonderful addition to our young adult bookshelf, and we would recommend it. I can see Divya Purandar asking whether the battle for number 19 is suitable for all ages. We would love to really say that, but we would say maybe 13 plus, because the nuances of the book are grasped better by teenagers and young adults. And of course, when we say that these books, and whether they're meant for young readers or whether they're meant for older readers, whether they're meant for children or for young adults, we really believe that all adults have got to pick this one up and read it as well. Sunila Kulkarni saying, one of the best, Ranjit Lal's number 19 is so very readable. Shashwat Srivastava saying, you are doing such a big service for the children of our country. Well, those are big words, really. We passionately believe that in the books by Indian creators really need to make their way into homes and into schools, and we want people to discover them. Because of the challenges of distribution and marketing and publicity, many of these books don't come into mainstream consciousness, and I really feel that they need to, because they represent our realities, our diverse realities, so wonderfully. And thank you for recognizing that, Shashwat Srivastava. And I do hope some of these books interest you, and you will recommend them to the children or young adults in your life. We do want to go into books of, and please, I say this over and over again, because these categorizations that we've made are only for us to choose books on a wide range of themes. These are all diverse books, and we don't really need to consider them as LGBTQ books or identity books or caste books or religion books. They are just portraying realities, the different realities of India. We do want to showcase very quickly two books on identity, and this is Pride Month, and we know and we're delighted that we have some wonderful books that showcase issues of identity and pride in our collection as well. Often when it comes to these issues, we are constantly turning to books from the West. No hassles there whatsoever, really. There are wonderful books written by writers all over the world on these themes, but we do want to tell you that our writers are doing a phenomenal job with some books as well, and you should consider these ones too, because perhaps they ring closer home than books that are written by Western writers. And that's not a judgment. We have all grown up reading a whole bunch of Western authors whom we've enjoyed considerably, and we continue to do that even today. I can see Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj saying, hello, Team FR. This is a subject very close to my heart. Thank you for doing this bazaar. Shashwat Srivastava saying, we're going to do that very soon. We'll talk to you after the show, provided, some voice is left at the end of it, really. But yes, very, very welcome to, take calls from you. Our numbers are up on the screen. Do reach out to us, Shashwat. On the question of identity, a favorite at Funky Rainbow and often recommended book in the bazaar, Gutli Has Wings by Kanak Shashi, a picture book for children 6+-year-olds, published by Tulika. We just adore the mother-son relationship in this book. There is, Gutli, who lives with her mother, father, brother, and sister, and she is the youngest in the family. Gutli, I particularly love her because she's a chatterbox, and who else on the team is a chatterbox here, really? But I think all chatterboxes, frankly, at Funky Rainbow. She's a happy and, a jolly child. Now, what happens? It's time for Diwali, and everybody is getting the house, decorated and, all spruced up and cleaned up. And Everybody has new clothes for Diwali, and Gutli too has clothes. But what Gutli is not happy with is her own clothes. She wants to wear her sister's frilly frock instead. And what happens, her sister looks at her wearing the frock, that's her, and screams at her saying, why are you wearing my new frock? And her father and her brother burst out laughing. And in fact, her father is also rather angry to see Gutli wearing the frock. Now, of course, her mother is, and when we say her, these are possibly not the right pronouns to describe gender fluid people. That's what Gutli is, because it's a story of a child's gender identity struggling to understand their own gender identity, trying to express their gender identity to the adults and the siblings around. So initially, even Gutli's mother tells them that don't why you should not be wearing a frock. Why don't you wear the clothes that are meant for you? And Gutli responds saying, when I want to be a boy, I'll be a boy. When I want to be a girl, I'll be a girl. What a lovely book for a young child, to introduce, at once, the joy in Gutli's life, the sparkle in Gutli's life, and also the sadness of Gutli's life, because people don't understand them. However, there's mother to the rescue. What happens? Does Gutli really fly? You have to read this one to find out. Meant for 6+ year olds, priced at 165 rupees. Besides, after Gutli has wings, we have one more. Okay, we have Lakshmi's Mooch again, which we recommended to you, I think, one or two bazaars ago, which is again a wonderful story of a little girl. And, she's playing with her friends in the playground, and each one of them deciding that each one of them is going to be one animal as part of their play. And Lakshmi says, the protagonist of the book, Lakshmi says that, want to, while she's thinking of what she wants to be, her friend turns around and tells her, well, irrespective of what you want to be, you've got to be a cat. And she's like, why? Why are you asking me to be the cat? Well, the children have seen that Lakshmi has a mooch, and well, that Lakshmi has whiskers. And initially, and I love that description, when her friend Noah tells her that, you've got to be a cat, you have these little hairs on your lip like cat whiskers, said Zoe, and meow, said Noah. Lakshmi's cheeks, and I love that description, grew as hot as a steaming bowl of mummy's aloo gobi. So she goes back rather unhappily home, and then she's looking at herself in the bathroom to see if she indeed has whiskers. What do her parents do? And she notices when she looks at herself in the mirror, she notices that she has hair on her hands, hair on her legs, hair in her armpits. What happens? How do her mother and her father, in fact, when she goes and complains to her mother saying, Mommy, this, Zoe tells me that I'll make a great cat. Mother looks at her and says, oh, my dear, you're truly my terrific Billy. You are really my cat. And what do the parents do about Lakshmi's hairy woes? It's a wonderful book about accepting yourself as you are, accepting yourself, not being embarrassed by your body in any way. And I really love the back of the book, which says, have whiskers, will roar. So does Lakshmi really roar? This one, written by Shelley Anand and illustrated by Nabi Ali. It's been published by the US imprint of Penguin, called Kokila, and this one priced at 499 rupees, a hardback book. We would, recommend it for 5+ year olds. Like I said, it's Pride Month, and we couldn't, we would include some excellent LGBTQ plus books in our collection, and delighted every time we get these books for younger and younger readers, because it's not like the themes that we're talking about are only meant for readers of a particular age. The more books that we have, the more inclusive books that we have, the more diverse books we have for all age groups, the better it is for all of us. And in that, absolutely in that category is this lovely one called The Boy in the Cupboard, published by an independent press called Lettori Press, and written by Harshala Gupte and illustrated by Priya Dali. I mean, this is just such an excellent book about a young boy called Karan, who comes back from school, every day, and just rushes right into his cupboard. When he's not at school, when he's not at home or eating, dinner, he's absolutely inside the cupboard. Even if he goes out to play with his friends, he comes rushing back quickly to hide inside the cupboard. But why? One day his mother asks him, why do you run into the cupboard? In fact, the day that she asks him that question first, he has run into the cupboard and he's weeping softly. Now mummy says she, musters up the courage to knock on the door and asks him, why he's crying. And she's saying, darling, why don't you come out and play? I wonder what you do in the cupboard all day. And his response, Karan's response, he says, look, this is what I love to do. This is what makes me me. I take your sari, I drape it like a gown, I pick marigolds from the garden and I wear them like a crown. Ma, look, I'm a queen. In the cupboard, I can be who I want to be. There's no dadi, no friends, nobody to chide me. What a heartwarming tale about a boy who's trying to understand himself and his place in the world. I think it's the kind of book that all young, readers need. We would recommend this for 7+year-olds, so that they start questioning those things that many adults often ask them to blindly believe in. I think it's a book that really needs to go into all homes, all home libraries and all school libraries, to know that your identity is your own, and really nobody else needs to have to say anything about it. This one is priced at 349 rupees, published by Lettori Press. We also have another one, and again, I know our guest who will come in probably in a bit of time, it has some fantastic young adult books on the theme of LGBTQ issues. And I know we will talk about some of them when she is up on the show, but this one, called The Best at It by Maulik Pancholi, is something that we'd recommend for 9+year-olds, perhaps 10+year-olds, about a young boy called Rahul Kapoor. He is, getting into the 7th grade, and I can see Archana Atri up here saying, "Hi, Funkies. I applaud you for taking up this subject. Well, with supporters like you and so many of you watching the show, it was only a matter of time before we did it. And I think it was more about clarifying these themes and picking the right ones, Archana, to showcase to all of our friends who are watching." Now, what is this, story all about? He's going to be finishing. I mean, he's getting into 7th grade. Middle school is making him terribly anxious, and there's only one person in the world that he can always confide in and who can always give him well-meaning advice. That's his grandfather, whom he calls Bhai. Now, what does Bhai tell him? And I really love the lines that Bhai, shares with him. He says, "Find one thing that you're really good at and become the best at it." Now, these words, they just impinge themselves into Rahul's brain, and he's trying to find that one special thing, that one thing that makes him special. And he knows that once he finds it, the bullies of the class like Brent Mason will stop torturing him. And he has an ally in a good friend called Chelsea. And what he wants to do is to find that thing that makes him special. Now, is he under pressure about finding that special thing? Do we all grow up thinking that we've got to find that one special thing about ourselves? So this book addressing that theme from both ends. Yes, he is. He's like, also a bit concerned about what if he discovers that he isn't the best at anything. It's a funny, it's an incredibly touching, heartwarming story about about Rahul, who's trying to come to terms with his identity. And meant, I think, like I said, if your child is ready for it at age 9, it would absolutely work. It's not too text heavy, the pages. And otherwise we would say 10 plus year olds. This one is priced at 299 rupees. And I think Maulik Pancholi lives in the US and has written this exuberant book on young Karan, who's trying to find what he's the best at and what makes him special. These are two wonderful books on the LGBTQ plus themes in our collection. And I know we have a clutch of others. Maybe I'll just do one or two more before I call our guests for the day. I'm sure there's an interesting conversation lined up there. So there are hundreds of more books that can get recommended, but do browse our bazaar. Go to the website www.funkyrainbow.com, click on the tab that says Book Bazaar. The first drop down menu will say diversity and inclusion. Do click on it. We've got tons of books, and we haven't really categorized it like I'm saying it as refugees or tribes or caste or religion or identity or LGBTQ plus. We've just put them all up there. Read the blurbs. Do message us if you want to ask questions about whether these books will be relevant to the readers in your life, to the children and young adult readers in your life. We'll do one, set of, one more theme that is, important to us. That is about the color of our skin. And there's this excellent book that came to us just very recently. In fact, Bharti is the one who, absolutely pointed me in the direction of this one when we were choosing books for the bazaar, called Our Skin. This is a foreign book, and it's a great conversation about, skin, about skin of different colors. It's never too early to begin this conversation. This book is definitely a great place to start. And children as young as toddlers do notice things about the colors of their skin, do notice things about being discriminated because of the color of their skin. This one's written by Megan Madison, Jessica Raleigh, and Isabel Roxas, written and illustrated by written by Megan Madison and Jessica Raleigh, and illustrated by Isabel Roxas. It's a lovely picture book, absolutely meant for the youngest of readers. And we do know in India, my gosh, our obsession with the color of about being fair, really, right? And I think some of these books, doing a wonderful job of saying to us that we are who we are, irrespective of the color of the skin. I can see Arun G saying that he enjoyed Unfair on Color, and that's pretty much the next book that we were planning to recommend. This one is by Rasil Ahuja, Unfair, about a young girl. And I'm so glad that you picked one. We do have excellent YA ones too, like number 9 on the shade card, which only when we read number 9 on the shade card did we realize that number 9 on a shade card of, say, nail polishes and lipsticks and paints, all the number 9 shades, or the shades closer to 9, are the brown colors, really, right? Now, this one too, about a girl called Lima who's auditioning for her 7th grade annual play, and she has absolutely set her heart on playing the lead role in the play. She's very qualified for it. She's really good at her she's really good at drama and theater, but Lima's teacher just thinks that she isn't the right shade for the part. Oh my God, really, how many times and how many children may have faced this kind of, quandary, and why? Why is there a right or wrong color for any part, for for any part that you have to play in a play, or anything that you have to do in life? And I just love the hashtag that Rasil has used, as part of her book. All Lima wants to do is to get a fair chance, hashtag fair chance, to be able to play the lead role in the play. It is a book for young readers, and what happens to her friendships? Are they, do friends support her in wanting to be in playing this lead part, or do they go against her? We think this would work absolutely for 9, 10 plus year olds, 10 plus year olds, certainly. Published by Penguin, priced at 250 rupees. And of course, we have two more which sort of come closer to this issue of color. There's also fat shaming or body shaming that so many children are subjected to in the world. I mean, we describe people by those adjectives, right? Like, we'll use adjectives that that label people in particular ways, and we really wonder, why do we need to call people anything other than what their own name is? And fat shaming, for sure, several children experiencing it in school. We have this lovely picture book on the theme, and this one, I think these books, I'm not sure they've absolutely gone out of print. I know that we got a clutch of them a couple of years ago, and perhaps because we haven't showcased them up on at the bazaar or on our website, which we've corrected now at the moment. These were by an indie press, and I do wonder if they're still in existence, called the Irreverent Project. They have 5 books, each one of them dealing with difficult dealing with different themes, like fat shaming, like why is the world not so equal for everyone? What are the roles of boys and girls in their houses? And this one we call The Curious Case of Mohit and Rumi the Rabbit, written by Varsha Varghese and illustrated by Sonaksha Iyengar. We would recommend this for young readers 6 plus. Is about a young boy who makes a poster for himself at the start of the book called Fat is Not a Bad Word. And I love the way these books, and we have very, very limited copies. In fact, I think we perhaps just have 1 or 2 copies of each of these books. The books weaving in some activity to do while you're reading the story itself. Like the next page says, ask your parents or friends or other family members to write 5 positive statements about you, then stand in front of the mirror and read it. But what is the story of Mohit, and what is that rabbit, Rumi the rabbit, and why is he getting fat shamed? Why should we even shame people for their size or their color? In the same vein, I mean, and this one we would recommend, like I said, for 6 plus year olds, priced at 225 rupees. In the same vein, a brand new book that came up at on Funky Rainbow's shelves just 2 weeks ago, or perhaps even just 1 week ago. Andalib Wajid's Mirror Mirror. I can see Archana Atri saying The Irreverent Project, just that label grabbed my attention. Indeed it did. That's exactly the reason why we found them, and picked up a clutch of their books, but I wonder whether they're still in existence. We've tried to find their books online, but in most instances, it seems to say it's out of stock or not in print. And that's why we urge parents and teachers to consider picking up these books. The publishing of these books needs to be viable. They open up conversations that are really important, and it needs to be a viable proposition, and that is possible only when parents, teachers, homes and schools pick up these books for pick up these books to read. And Andalib's book, Mirror Mirror, about a young girl called Ananya, a young teenager called Ananya, who starts to hate her own body. She decides, because she's been ridiculed by her friends, she decides that she's going to she's going to get a new body, and she wants to fit into the kinds of clothes that her friends are wearing. She wants to shun all food except salads, and she certainly doesn't want to be called Miss Piggy. And she wants to block out of her life all semblance of the older life that she knew. In this quest to get a new body, what happens to Ananya? I mean, Andalib, writes many books for adults, but she also has some of these fantastic young adult books, and where she deals with these difficult topics with a lightness of touch, which makes them so wonderful to read. There's also dollops of humor often in Andalib's writing. And what happens to Ananya, who has decided that she just hasn't got the right body? Does she get on the path of self acceptance and self love? What a wonderful theme this is, really much needed on our shelves. We would recommend this for 13-plus-year-olds, and this one published by Duckbill, priced at 250 rupees. There are several other diverse books. We had issues of gender. We had growing up, where books that deal with sexuality as you're growing up, what happens to changes in your body. They're all up there in our bazaar. Please do. And even in gender, in this particular bazaar, we haven't put in books that that show girls sort of conquering male bastions, because we did a separate bazaar of girl power books, and there we have girls who get on top of situations and find their places in the world. Here we're talking about what is right for boys and what is right for girls, and should there be things that boys should do and that only girls should do. So please browse through our collection. I mean, there are, like I said, 80 plus books up there. Look at them carefully, see if they suit the requirements of the readers in your lives, and do consider picking them up from Funky Rainbow. These have been very challenging times, and we would be delighted for any support that you give our small independent children's bookstore. I can see, so many. I can see Asha saying, "Thank you, Funky Rainbow, for introducing us to this wonderful range of books on issues we must discuss with children. Didn't know about many of these books. Coming from you, that is such a wonderful compliment, Asha. Thank you so much." Neetu Singh saying, "Wonderful books. Would love to introduce my students to them." You must. You really must, because we all know, and we should know, even if we don't, that a diverse world, an accepting world, a tolerant world is a far, far better world to live in. With that, I'm going to, invite my guests of the day. I want to check with Sham if, Payal is in. So we have I can see Divya saying, "Wonderful books. FR plays a big role in reaching these books, which mainstream bookstores hardly have, and are instruments of change in society." Wow, lofty ideals. Those are they are the books that are doing that job, Divya. We're only, holding the mirror up to all of you, saying we do have these, we have all these books by Indian creators in our collections. Arunji saying, do the lists on Book Bazaar going to be there for some time? Arun, they're there always. Go to our website, www.funkyrainbow.com. Click the tab that says Book Bazaar. There's a drop down menu that will come, and all the themes in the bazaar that we've done all through the last year, they're all there, and all those books are inside each of those headers. So if you click diversity and inclusion, you will see the books that we've recommended and the ones that we've had no time to recommend. And that's true of all our bazaars. We leave them up there so that whoever, whenever they want to see these and find the right books, can do it. The videos are up on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook pages as well. I am, of course, delighted to, bring in our guests for the day today. And I think Shams, there's author and very dear friend Payal Dhar, actually a sounding board for very, very many years that we have worked together with each other. And there is, of course, a very young and, talented young lady who's also going to join us at the show this afternoon, which is Tamanna. This is Tamanna Kaveri Sen. Absolutely delighted that we have the two of them at our bazaar today. I want to check. Sorry. Yeah. Little bit more to the right. Okay. All right. Come, Tamanna, move up. Okay, so there, sorry? Yeah, all right. We're just signing in, getting Payal, into the conversation. And hi, Payal. Just 1 second. My audio always acts up when the guest comes. Hi, Payal. Can you just say hi?
Hello.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
We still can't hear you. Hang on a second. One more hi, Payal.
Hello. No?
Yeah, but if we can't hear her, we won't be able to converse. Well, I'm just hoping it's resolved. Can you say hi again? Sorry, I'm making you say hi a million times. So,
hello.
No, Sham, can you just come up and look at it over
No?
here for a minute? Just hang on a second. Just 1 second. Sorry. Not able to. Yeah, it's okay. You just have to come into the. There, that's the. Yeah. Speakers, Realtek. Yeah, let's hope. Payal, hi to you again, and I'm hoping we've managed to resolve this at our end.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Hooray. Loud and clear. Thank you so much for joining us at what is a really special book bazaar, for us at Funky Rainbow. And you do know that we are huge fans of all your writing, definitely. I'm going to quickly introduce you and Tamanna before we start off on the questions. Payal writes books for middle grade readers and young adult readers, and some of the books that she's written, many of which we have up in our collection and we will talk about in the course of our conversation, are such splendid books that fall into this category of diverse books. She also is a freelance journalist on science, technology, and society. The thing, though, is our relationship with Payal goes back so many years, really. In fact, I do recall a meeting when we met, when we sort of met up when she just started on her writing journey, and we were bringing out these children's magazines called Hoot and Toot. And I remember Payal starting to write some wonderful, stories for us in those magazines. But from there, from those simple stories for the magazines, the evolution into a writer who represents, diverse peoples in her books, it has absolutely been a pleasure and privilege to be, with Payal on that journey. A, as writer and editor, or B, as collaborators at Good Books when we were working together to review books for the book review site Good Books. It has really been a splendid journey, Payal, and I'm so glad that you are here at the Bazaar to talk about your books and writing for children and young adults. Equally,
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah,
equally,
sorry, there's a lag.
oh, is there a lag? I'm sorry
There's a bit of a
about that.
lag. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me on your show, and I've been fangirling from afar for a really long time, so it's an honor to be here, really.
Thank you, Payal. Thank you so much. And I want to introduce our young guest for the day, Tamanna Kaveri Sen, who's also, avid reader, aspiring writer, and also someone who's been part of a nice, longish journey in my life. I've known her from the time that she was 4, maybe 5 years old, and she's 14 today. What has been marvelous across these years and this journey filled with book recommendations and book discussions and understanding what young people want to see of books. What has been marvelous has been the fact that she has grown up to be this empathetic young woman with so much, with her heart absolutely in the right place. And I want to tell all the parents and teachers walking that I can say that as this journey has been possible for Tamanna, because of several other reasons, but in my worldview, it has been possible because of books. I can see Asha saying, I remember Tamanna being put to work at Funky Rainbow's pop-ups. I'm so glad you have brought such atrocities to the attention of public, but we promise to do this to all children who visit us at Funky Rainbow. You've got to sort books. You've got to sort of, arrange them for us, and you've got to be part of our pop-ups. And boy, how much do we hanker for those pop-ups. And Sham has so rightfully in his way said it builds character. That's what we say.
The only reason we do it is because we get Geeta Party's food as payment.
Well, see, that's not the books, it's the food finally. She says the only reason we do it is because there's my mother's food for the taking. I'm delighted to see so many of you saying hello to Tamanna, many parents who've come visiting us in the pre-COVID times, knowing Tamanna, who has dusted books on our shelves and recommended them, to many parents, being far more persuasive than either Sham, Muttama, or me can ever get in this lifetime. Delighted that you're here with us this afternoon, Tamanna, and delighted that the two of you, such perceptive, a really perceptive writer and a really perceptive reader, joining us on a bazaar that focuses on diversity in children's books. I'll start off with my first question to you, Payal. This one is, before I let you and Tamanna have the conversation largely, this question primarily because I wanted to understand from you, who has these excellent books for middle readers and young adults, about why often people equate diverse books with multicultural books. Typically, when a parent will say, sure, I do have diversity in my collection. I'm bringing in books that feature characters and festivals and cultural contexts that are completely different from my own. So I wanted to ask you, is there really a difference between including characters in books and representing them?
Yeah, I think the difference is actually representation and visibility. What you said about having multicultural people and multicultural books is of course important, because we live in a society that is so diverse, but it's not enough, because and this difference was very eloquently put by a friend of mine, and if she's watching River High, who said that when you say when you have people, when you have a diverse cast, that's visibility. That's when you see different people. But when you tell stories, when you tell about their lives and their experiences, that's when you represent them. So just visibility is not enough. Just visibility could sometimes just be tokenism. But when you say representation, then that should be about the stories that we tell about ourselves and about other people. I think that's the main distinction that one should look for. And like, for instance, I mean the biggest example of tokenism that I can think of is that there's a bunch of boys and there's just one girl. So many books, movies, and so on. They fall into this trap. And I
That's
think it's really important to understand this distinction.
Yeah, it's a very, very important distinction, Payal, and that's really well said. Tamanna, you had a question for Payal, right?
Yeah. So my question was, how do you nail the teenage characters in your books so accurately? Because you you get their voices absolutely right, and you portray them with the kind of empathy that you don't usually find in Indian YA books. So how do you do that?
Well, first of all, I'm very flattered that you think I do, because I mean, one does want to do it, but one usually has absolutely no clue if one is managing to. I think you might have also touched upon the fact that maybe my mental age is like that of a 15-year-old. Maybe that's why. But no, but more seriously, I think that the the things that I felt, the things that I dealt with, and the things that as a teenager, which kind of made me think and feel and all that. I think that those things haven't changed really. And does it? So a lot of that still applies. The whole pressure to conform, to be a certain way, to behave a certain way, to live your life a certain way, that those things have never really resolved, because these pressures don't ever go away. There's always someone or something telling you that, okay, you should be like this, or you should be like that. So yeah, I think I'm just maybe not making a very good case for my maturity. But I don't I remember I remember that feeling of being like, no, like thinking that there is a set of rules for the world, but nobody has told me what they are. And that feeling that I had as a teenager, and I don't think it's gone away. So I think I should shut up now, because I'm really not picking myself in close.
Well, I mean, no
But no, thank you,
immaturity.
thank you.
No immaturity in that response whatsoever, Payal. I think whether it's your characters, Laila from Hit for a Six, and I do want to show our audience all your books. I think, Sham, you have them up as well, right? Whether it's Laila from Hit for a Six, or whether it is the unnamed protagonist of A Helping Hand, or whether it is Sahil, Komal from Slightly Burnt. One thing that happens, Payal, in all your books, is that very quickly and very early on in the book itself, right, they are forced out of their comfort zones. And is there a reason why you don't ever protect your protagonists from the challenges of growing up? Tell us about this in the context of some of your books. I mean, some of your characters in books, and also in the context of the new one that's coming out. Because after you finish your answer, we'll play the trailer to the new book and show the audience the cover as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So while you were framing this question, Vidya, it just made me realize that the three books that you mentioned, the the protagonist, the point of view character, is actually not the marginalized person. The point of view character is point of view character is actually somebody who's considered normal, you know, in our society. And I think that's something for me to reflect upon. Though I hope that that's something that the new book will address. But I think that I think as someone who right from childhood has been a non-gender conforming, I have it's it's been incredibly sometimes lonely, sometimes frightening, sometimes hostile to be this person who does not fit into the boxes that are supposed to, that are supposedly there for our own convenience or our own, to feel a kind of a belonging. So it would have made a lot of difference to me if, as a child, I had ever read any book about somebody who was not, not just ticking off all the boxes and was kind of themselves and yet different. So I think also, I mean, these days we have lots of books. We have lots of diverse books. We have lots of words to explain who we are. We have words like uh, you know uh, we have words like, say, uh, well, what I just said, non-gender confirming and non-binary and stuff like that. That there is a lot of conversation about what it means to be a boy or a girl, masculine, feminine. But back then, I didn't have anything except a lot of pushback, a lot of hostility from people who couldn't peg me, and that's something that doesn't leave you, and it kind of makes you think about what are all of these things that we consider normal, what are all of these things that we consider should be or shouldn't be, what is even a girl supposed to be like, what is femininity, who defines it for me, what is masculinity, uh, what is normal, what is not, even in terms of disability. I mean, for a disabled person to say that someone who can't hear is disabled and not normal, how do we decide if maybe not hearing could be normal and maybe we hearing people could be the disabled one? I mean, who decides? So I think that for me, that that discomfort is something that I always live with, and that discomfort is something that I wanted to put into books. And in the forthcoming book, it has no name. I think for the first time, I don't know what it was. Maybe it's just age. Yeah, maybe it's just age, that I think I finally had the courage to actually speak from the perspective of a protagonist who doesn't. I mean, I actually went into the shoes of the protagonist, and I don't know why I waited this long, because I have been here all my life. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question or if I just completely went off on a tangent.
No, you absolutely answered it, Pyle. And I want to say that we are so delighted that, we at Funky Rainbow are the first ones to be revealing the cover of Pyle's forthcoming book. It's going to be out by Red Panda on the 19th of July. And, we're going to, announce a campaign at that point in time. We just love the cover of the book, Pyle. So congratulations to you and the editorial team for putting together this, for creating this wonderful book. We will put out a pre-order campaign for it as soon as we get the specifications from the publisher. I do want to show the trailer that they have shared with us, to our audience. So if we can just have Sham show the trailer to It Has No Name. So, yes, for all of you watching, so glad, just so glad that a book of a dear friend and, a book that she says she doesn't know why she waited this long to write that one. I'm so glad that Funky Rainbow has put out the announce and the pre-order for that book. Payal Joanne Saldana, who's a library educator and a wonderful book reviewer based out of Madras, and who writes this popular blog under the name Myth Auntie, says, if you don't find the book or story you want, you write it. So glad. Three cheers to you, Payal Dhar, for doing that.
I have another question. So
Yeah.
you often pick under not yeah underrepresented communities in your books. You've got a sporty girl in
Hit for a
Hit for
six.
a Six.
Yeah.
Thank you. In Hit for a Six, you've got a disabled child in A Helping Hand, and you've got a queer teenager in Slightly Bound. So how do you get away with writing these supposedly hush hush, characters and themes and topics?
Um, Part of it is, I think it's a mixture of lived experience, research, and yeah, actually, it's just that. I mean, I was the sporty girl too, so uh, so lived. Yeah, I think that if you face if you have lived experience of being excluded, of being pushed to the sides, it kind of helps you step into the shoes of other people who may have been pushed to the sides. But I also think that it's important to know, it's important to acknowledge that even if I write from my own life experiences, that I'm not speaking for every such person. It's just one point of view, because people are human beings are just such complex creatures. Like, we can't encapsulate the experiences of one kind of people or one kind of experience in just one story. So it's just one story uh, picked from the things that I that I have usually experienced. In case of A Helping Hand, the disabled child, was it comes from an experience that I had when there was a classmate I met who had a prosthetic hand. And for the longest time, I used to look at her hand and think that, why does her hand look like it's made of plastic? But I did not have the vocabulary or the sensitivity or uh, actually complete lack of social graces to ask about her hand. And 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 now I feel like, what, that was her hand, and that should have been not normalized. So so yeah, it's mostly kind of wanting to see the parts of myself that I never saw anywhere, in these books.
Wonderful, wonderful response. Payal, Sham just tells me that Facebook has flagged this video every time we put up videos on our feed, and even if they have been given to us, creditably by the publisher, it flags and it shuts off our feed. And apparently, there's a
Right.
warning that's gone up. So, what he wants us to do is to log out of this feed and come back into the live stream again. I'm sorry, to our okay, he says it is live, and that if it stops at some point and if it cuts off because Facebook has flagged it, then we'll just restart and come back into the conversation again. Okay, I can see so many people appreciating Tamanna's questions and your responses, Pyle. I can see Archana Atri saying that you share parts of yourself in your book, and that makes for that ensures that going forward, kids or teenagers don't find books where they can't see themselves. That's what we are trying to do. That's what we're trying to achieve in this context, to ensure that we have a world where every child can see themselves in a book, essentially. I know, and the Red Panda, so many people, telling you that the cover looks more so unusual, and saying that the trailer was fantastic. I know Arun G had a question for you, and I'm going to try and come back, to it because it seems to have gone off my chat. I'll come back to it after. Oh, well, we can barely read it, Sham. Somebody will have to put it out, write it for us and put it out over here. And, we will ask you that. But I know as part of this conversation, and for the first time ever, we had a guest who wanted to ask, some questions in return. So, Payal, go ahead and ask the ones that you had wanted to ask Tamanna. And we're thrilled that you suggested that, that you wanted to do that, Payal.
Yeah, because we sit around discussing children's books, and I mean, we don't actually ask young people themselves what they want. So, Tamanna, by the way, I'm a great fan of yours. Vidya has told me a lot about you, and yeah,
Thank you.
more on that later. So, I want to know from you is that what is the one thing that you think young adult books don't get right about teenage protagonists that you would like maybe to change or addressed?
I guess that we as teenagers don't know what's going on in the world around us. Because in many books that I've read, I find that the teenage protagonist is often portrayed as someone who knows nothing of what's going on around them, and I find that to be a very generic opinion. And I think in reality, the truth lies somewhere in between. And it's like because we live in an era where we've got information so freely and widely available to us, right? And if we find certain topics interesting, we actually go and scour the internet for it. We look up articles, we read them, we watch videos, we do all of that. But then on the flip side of that, I find that not a lot of us tend to, like, if we identify with a particular opinion on a certain topic, we read only that opinion. We don't look at what somebody else thinks of the topic if it's not our opinion. And another thing is that we only read about topics that interest us, not topics that we don't find interesting, like about business or anything. If I don't like business, I don't go read about it. I stick to in this like safe little bubble of human rights and all of that. And I find that that is something that you don't really find in teenagers in literature. And I guess we should see teenagers, and authors should write about teenagers who are still learning about the world, but not ones that don't know anything about it. So yeah.
Yeah. By the way, sorry to break your illusion, but adults also just stay in their own bubble, just look at things that they want to, they're interested in, and only listen to opinions that align with their own. So, you have. Can I ask one more question?
Of course. But I want to say so many. You can ask one or two more questions as well. I can see so many people, and I want to, Sangeeta Krishnamurthy, also, an educator and a reviewer of books, claiming Tamanna as her student right here, saying, wow, I mean, I'm going to stake my claim about her articulate expression of questions to you, Payal. But, I can see Shantanu Datta Gupta, publisher at Scholastic, congratulating you on the book. Vijay Lakshmi Nagaraj too, saying sensitivity in children can happen only if parents, adults themselves have it in themselves. Payal, fantastic. Congratulations. I'm waiting to read the book. And Arun, who has a question, for you, which I'll do after you ask Tamanna the question, saying that it's absolutely correct. Children are never, ever asked their opinions. But go ahead, Payal, and shoot your next question to Tamanna as well.
Well, it's related to my first question. What do teens want to read? What is it that you guys want to read about?
Well, again, I'm going to tie in my previous answer. I feel that we'd all like to read about teenagers that are knowledgeable enough, and not like handled with kid gloves and all of that. But apart from that, I feel that we need more relatable characters, because in a lot of mainstream literature, you find that the protagonist tends to be the perfect poster child. That they have these certain attributes to them. They're smart, they're good looking, slim but with a six pack, you're fair skin, you're great at sports, you're perfectly able, and you're heterosexual and you're cisgender. When and I think that I could only count on one finger how many people that I know that are exactly like that, you know. And books are a safe haven, you know, and reading about characters who make you feel seen and reflect who you are. I think that's something that every reader wants, you know, to be seen, to see yourself in a protagonist. But when you have this, you know, perfect poster child as a protagonist, that really can't happen. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that authors should start writing about teenagers who don't fit into the ideal mold of of who a child should be, that, you know, we as like a society have fabricated. And on the topic of teenagers reading, I also think that parents should encourage their children and their kids to read more diverse books, because of course they should be age appropriate. But I think that in encouraging your teen to be more woke and read about people who are different from them, or reading about characters that they relate to, I think that would be amazing. And yeah, you could even read with your children, because like we may be old enough to feed ourselves, but you're never too young to read with your parents. So
Well said. Well
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, thank you, Tamanna. That's actually very well articulated, and I think you've also touched upon this thing that authors do, especially when writing for children and teens, is that I think a lot of us, we create characters that we imagine we'd like children to be, perfect and well behaved and never getting into messes and innocent and everything. So it's like this our imagination of what the perfect child would be, and actually that's kind of sounds like a very boring child.
Her
Thanks,
mother is
thanks.
at the moment like ticking her off right from the office over here, but the stage is Tamanna's and yours, so feel free to say what you'd like to. I actually do want you to bring up that wonderful insight that you shared with me the other day about why you started. I mean, you've always been a huge Percy Jackson fan. I mean, a Rick Riordan fan. And what he did about his writing. I mean, I was stunned by that insight that you offered me, Tamanna, and I would like you to share it with Payal and the other people who are watching.
Okay, well, you're giving me like a platform to gush about Percy Jackson with Auntie. I'll never say no. Nobody at home listens to me, so I shall do it here.
All yours.
So he's got this huge series, right? It's like 15 books in total about the Greek mythology and Roman mythology, this one. And so I was actually reading this thing and watching a lot of people talk about it. So for the first 5 books, it was pretty, white, cisgender, and heterosexual. But then, and this was in the early 2000s, so it was like 2005, I think the first book was released. And so after he finished that first series, he sort of realized that, you know what, my book series has blown up. It's quite influential, and there are a lot of kids, like 9-year-olds, reading this. And he was also a teacher. And so he brought up this thing in several interviews where he was like, this, if it's so widely read, I feel that I need to represent more communities. I need to have more diverse characters. So then after those 5 books, you could see every other book he's written is like an explosion of representation. You've got queer characters, you've got characters from different religious communities, you've got disabled characters, and that's something that's really cool, because the entire Percy Jackson series is based on kids with learning disabilities being superheroes. Saving the world. Your ADHD and dyslexia doesn't mean you're terrible or something. It just means you're super cool. And you've got this entire generation of kids being like, I wish I had ADHD and dyslexia. Because that would mean I'd be a Greek demigod. And all of that. And you find such positive representation of characters with learning disabilities, characters who are deaf, characters of color, queer characters, and such positive representation. They're portrayed as heroes, not as someone to be afraid of. And to show this to your audience, which is like full of 9-10-year-olds, it's phenomenal and something that I really admire. And because I want to be a writer, I want to be someone like him, who's inclusive of every community, and it doesn't feel forced. It is true to that character, and it's not poorly written or anything. It's just, yeah, it's wonderfully written.
Absolutely spectacular answer, really. Like, no forced fit into those books. And I can see so many comments coming up for this conversation. I mean, so many people agreeing with what Tamanna is saying, agreeing with what you're saying, Payal. I mean, I think, if I started calling them out, we'd spend the next hour chatting for sure. But I know, you have some books that you want to recommend. In fact, before we go into the recommendation issue, I'll ask you Arun's question, which he has put up on the, on the chat. Do the issues of teens, for that matter, kids, cut across generations? Do they remain same? Probably now that technology gives a bit of gives us an outlet to express. Okay, so I mean, he says, do the issues that of teenagers or even children cut across generations? That's the prime focus of his question, Payal.
Right, right. Yeah, I think some things do, because value systems are always in flux, and young people are always trying to find out where they fit in this world. So, I mean, depending on the context, it might look different, but the basic matter is the same. It's actually essentially the same thing, and yes, a lot of things also are different because of the same reason that value systems are in flux. So, things that were questioned back back in the 70s and 80s, uh, are not the same kind of things that are in question today. But I mean, if I think that if you dig deeper, it's the essential the essential struggle of a person, of a human being trying to find their place in the world, is actually the same. It's how you relate to people of your own generation, to other generations. How do you interact with the world? Those basic things actually don't change, they just look different. Yeah,
Absolutely.
and I think that, yes, yeah, technology has made a difference. The internet has made a difference, because I mean, the best example I can think of is that it's given us such a lot of vocabulary to describe ourselves, more words for who we are and how we feel, more affirmations for those of us who don't fit into the regular categories of whatever that might be.
Lovely. I can
It's,
see.
it's, it's a very interesting question.
Yeah, it's a lovely question, Arun, really. And, I can see Ashika Shetty saying, I also think authors should delve in writing about teens who have gray characters. The right and wrong is something that is misrepresents children's lived experiences of vulnerability. Absolutely, such a wonderful. It's the kind of conversation that we could have for a long time. I can see so many kind of questions coming in, making us feel really, glad that there are enough people out there willing to get into these conversations, to listen to teenagers, listen to writers who write about diverse characters. And perhaps one of these days we'll try to set up like a open conversation with you and a couple of other writers, and several viewers can just come in and ask you relevant questions about diversity and representation in children's books. I do know, Payal, that you're quite a reader yourself, and with a wonderful collection of books. So, are there any diverse reads that you'd like to recommend to us? And could you also give some tips to parents and teachers and writers and illustrators who are watching us at the show on how our reading lists can become more inclusive?
As for tips, I want to echo something that Tamanna just said, and I really believe this. I have always believed it, and it was great hearing Tamanna say it. Is that trust your children to understand complications, and don't, because they live complicated lives themselves. It's the scale. I mean, we might think that some things are grown up things and they are more important or more difficult, but kids also live in the same world. They also face the same kind of pressures at their own level, and it is just as big, if not bigger, for them. So do trust your children. to understand these complications, don't overthink don't overthink on their behalf, because I think that the one of the ways we really underestimate children is that we think that, okay, so and so is going to read this and think that, and we are worried about that. But when the kid reads it, they see it in their own context, and they understand it and they interpret it in their own context. So let that happen, because that's how you discover who you are. I mean, that's how I read books. For instance, we grew up with Enid Blytons, and we all loved these Enid Blytons, but they always left me with this huge sense of discomfort because of the very gendered nature of the way that she represented children.
Absolutely.
And that eventually had a really big impact on my life, that made me kind of question that. I mean, it was many years before I would discover that there are not just two or three genders, there are many genders. But the thinking started. So yeah, so basically let kids experience books. Don't try to curate that experience for them. Let them get what they can get out of it. And the other thing that I would like to tell parents, librarians, all kinds of readers, is that yes, yes, diversity and inclusion are important, but do also pay attention as to who's telling whose story, because a lot of the times it's an able-bodied author telling the story of a disabled person, which in and of itself should be okay, but whose story is being told? Is it actually, are you, as a reader, are you in the shoes of the disabled character, or are you in the shoes of somebody who's looking at the disabled character? If I am writing about say caste, or if I'm writing about someone from a socioeconomic background that's different from mine, am I am I imposing what I feel that the life of such a person is onto that? Is it authentic? Is the telling authentic? So I think that if one is looking for diverse books, it actually helps to do a little bit of research on who the author is, what the author's background is, and where they are coming from when they are writing these books.
Just absolutely spectacular and priceless advice, Pile. I mean, it's so right. Who's telling the story? Who's telling whose story? And about children, having the agency to do whatever it is that they want to do, right? I mean, that's really what diversity is all about. Did you want to recommend some reads? I know you had mentioned a few when we chatted yesterday, and I know we've exceeded time, but we can just take 2-3 minutes to get those recommendations from you, Payal.
Who would have thought that I would go on and on beyond the time?
Yeah, I, for one, am absolutely surprised.
I'm shocked. Yeah, so the first one I want to recommend is Bena's Summer by, I think, Shipal Bhartiya.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful. The protagonist is an 8 or 9-year-old, but I think that this is actually a young adult book. But it's beautifully layered. I mean, if you read it as an adult, if you read it as a child, I think you get different things out of it. And it very sensitively depicts communal tension, communal riots, and it uh, it kind of, it sounds trite to say it, but the book has a kind of innocence with which it narrates some really difficult topics like child sexual abuse and hate. So yeah, definitely this one. Another one that I want to recommend is Jandy Nelson's "I'll Give You the Sun." So this is actually a kind of very different coming of age story. It tells the story of a pair of twins, and one part of the story is set when they are 13 and the other one when they are 16, and the things that change between them and about them as between the in these two phases of their life. So it's about growing up, it's about sibling relationships, it's about loss, love, and a lot of other things. So this I also really like the way that the writing, the way that one of the characters expresses themselves, because it's from two perspectives. And the third one is, I think, it's my favorite YA books of all time, which Angie Thomas's The Hate You Give. If anyone hasn't read it yet, I mean, irrespective of age, I think you should read it. I think it's especially in India, where we are so obsessed with everything American. And when you read the book, you realize that the idea of America we have is just a very white kind of idea. We have absolutely no understanding of the kind of diversity that's there in the US. We have zero understanding of Black lives. We have zero understanding of what it means to be a people whose ancestors they don't have an identity, they were just numbers, and their histories have been wiped out. And this book, it was shocking in a really good way for me, because it made me realize how little we actually know about the things that we think we know a lot about. That's it. I can go on, so please continue.
Wonderful recommendations, really, Payal. And I can see that Tamanna is sticking her list and
I'm
saying
going
that
to. Mummy's been telling me you're not old enough to read The Hate You Give. Mummy Payal said I can, and I should.
and therein has so many mummy-dums and parenthood coming undone at the moment at the bazaar. But that said, I've never known them, to not let Tamanna pick up some books. That was just absolutely.
I can feel the target on my forehead.
Not me. And she said, even after she was advised not to read Slightly Burnt, she went and read it when she was in the 6th standard. And Sham says he's cooling down the temperatures with some snow, if you please, like, right?
Yes, thank you. It's 40 degrees outside.
And he has not let us switch on the fan in the interest of noise in the office, so it's pretty much like 40 degrees out here as well. But thank you so much, Payal and Tamanna. We've had an unprecedented number of comments, especially because of this wonderful suggestion that came, from Payal and from Muttama, actually, to have a reader and a writer in conversation. It's been absolutely wonderful, the insights that both of you have given us. I see that the editor at Red Panda is here today, Vidhi Bhargava. Sham, if you can put up the cover of Payal's book. It's going to be with us. Vidhi, you can see the huge amount of pressure on getting the book to us really quickly right now. And, with the temperature being 40 degrees in Delhi and pretty much like 40 degrees here in Bangalore, let's strike when the iron is hot. Let's, make sure, that we have the books quickly, because many people wanting to buy and read Payal's new book, It Has No Name. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us, and thank you to everybody who's been at the bazaar commenting. It really, it's difficult, and I've been telling both Muttama and Sham and Bharti and Sujita this right through, and Payal. In fact, I have to send a big thank you out to Payal for being a sounding board at all sorts of witching hours, which I'm delighted that she's a co-owl in this process. Payal, I'm really wondering whether this book is going to work. I don't know whether this is going to fit right in. It's been a difficult bazaar to curate. And I'm so glad so many of you have been here looking at the books and appreciating the books and, putting in your comments about the books. These conversations really make us unafraid. Sorry, Vidhi says, absolutely, we will dash them off super soon. waiting, Vidhi, like, right? Thank you so much. But thank you to all of you for being here with us and being part of these wonderful conversations that we hope will make our world, more accepting, more tolerant, and more hopeful. Payal, did you want
Thank
to
you
say
also.
something? Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to say thank you to Vidya and to the Funky Rainbow team for letting me have this platform and to say to kind of speak a lot of truths, which it's not always easy to have a space where you can, where it's actually appreciated, and there's the audience who actually wants to know, to have honest answers. So it was really great. And Tamanna, your questions were also great, and I'll look forward to meeting you again in person
Yes, we're
soon,
really looking forward
when
to
we
it.
can go out and about.
Yes, absolutely. And we autographed copies
Oh,
of the book.
I'm losing it.
Yeah, she's losing it. All right. So we will, I mean, there was this.
All right.
It's Vidhi says it's been such a wonderful and insightful session. Thank you so much, Vidya, Tamanna, Payal, Team Funky Rainbow. I'm just going to close with a quote from an unlikely source, actually, but this is Michael Jackson, and he says, "In a world filled with hate, we must still dare to hope. In a world filled with anger, we must still dare to comfort. In a world filled with despair, we must still dare to dream. And in a world filled with distrust, we must still dare to believe." Thank you so much to both of you, wonderful teenagers, wonderful writer, for giving us that hope. And thank you so much for the audience, to everybody in our audience, for keeping this, this funky rainbow dream alive. We'll see you next Saturday with another bazaar, and we'll be back with more books. Till then, bye bye. And I know we've taken up a whole host of way more time than we were supposed to, but that's Funky Rainbow and books for you. Oh, okay. Muttama is reminding me that I've forgotten to say hello to so many people. All right. I'm just going to quickly say, I know they know that, there's Shana Hana, Stuti Agarwal, Bookathon, Harini, Joy of Drama, Stories from Stone, Chitra, Rinku Gupta, Janvi Ashar, Juna Handmaid, Katha Kutuhala, T4 Tales, Jaswal, Pranoti, Vichitra Dureja, Artbeat, Mamta Deni, Sheetal, Divya Purandar, Asha Nehmaya, Shashwat Srivastava, Vijay Lakshmi Nagaraj, Vidhi Bhargava, Sumitra Raghavan, Tarab Khan, Nalini Sorensen, Archana Atri, Arun Ji, Neetu Singh, Vinita Rai, Tabu Tasu, Samrat Banerjee, Devika Rangachari, Matthew Jacob, Joanne Saldana, Shahana, Pushpa Negi, Sangita Krishnamurthy, Preeti Manoj, Anasuya Mishra, Arzu Kaveri Sen, Swapna Mitra, Shweta Vachani, Niharika Ghosh, Ashika Shetty, Sarvam Kali, Chaudhry Abdul Rahman, Sumana Kundagrami, and Rakshita Kaul. Thank you so much for joining us at this bazaar. It's absolutely been a pleasure to present these diverse range of books to you. We wish you all a very thoughtful weekend, thinking about many of these books we've recommended, and do consider picking them up from Funky Rainbow if you think they work for your reading requirements. We'll see you next Saturday. Till then, bye-bye and keep reading. Bye, Payal.